Moved by Supervisor Carl, seconded by Supervisor Bruno. Any additions or corrections?
I'm supporting.
Call the question, all in favor? Aye, opposed?
Get one more.
Carried. Next item is privilege of the floor and public comment. Anyone like to address the finance budget?
Treasurer's report?
Right after number one. So now we'll move on to the action agenda. And item one is a request for transfers of funds as attached for the committee to approve or disapprove.
Make a motion to approve the transfers.
Okay, moved by Supervisor Carl, seconded by Supervisor Eastman. Any questions or discussion? Call the question on item one. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, it's not on your agenda, but the county treasurer, Ms. Norton, has asked to give a report to the committee.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. I'll try to make this quick. There's a couple things. I have been giving some updates in the tourism committee meeting, and I think some of those folks in here aren't in that committee, so actually some of the board members aren't, so just I'm a little redundant with some people who've heard this, my apologies, but gonna go through a couple key areas. OPTAX efforts. We've made some really good progress. As you can see by the budget variance report, you know, we're coming into the high season and we're trending upwards. We're approximately 4% up from last year. We're doing really well with some of the enforcement efforts that I've been talking about. In total, the enforcements, you know, I call it my dirty dozen, my naughty list, if you will. There's there's more than 12 now. There's upwards of 15, 16. And again, these are estimates, but $350,000 to $500,000 that is owed to the county with these individuals. The good news is, the team's been working really hard and we've gotten some great results. Collections to date are 138,000. Most notably, we got an $80,000 check yesterday from the Mohegan Motel. So that was a long one outstanding. Work in process, and how we're getting these numbers is we've been working, Larry went through the log with me, literally paragraph by paragraph, and shared with me exactly the power that I had. And there's something called a notice of determination, where when we file this against these properties for not paying their occupancy tax, it basically attaches to their title. And the Mohegan and the Wyndham, Baymont by Wyndham were in sales negotiations. So we got those in, and literally we got the $80,000 yesterday at the closing table. So they can't sell properties without paying the county go forward. So that's those two. But right now we have notices of determination on 3 properties in the amount of almost $300,000. Baymont being one of them. There's a couple of others. It's unfortunate they've been sold last year. So as you know, the occupancy tax debt transfers with the property. So I am trying to deal with prior owners to get them to do the right thing, but the current owners are also in the know and are also willing to work with us. We do have a property in Stony Creek, and it's unfortunate. These people it's been 4 years in a row or 5 years that we've been going after them to register, and they've never registered. And they've got over $100,000 bill right now, occupancy tax due. I don't know, and they're working with us. They finally come in again because we slapped like a $500,000 lien on their property. Kind of gets their attention. It works. I don't know if they've collected, so that's kind of an unfortunate situation. But again, we've got letter after letter supporting that. We've asked them to do the right thing. With regarding work in progress, where we don't have any notices of termination and we haven't really started working them yet, we've got another $115,000. One that's kind of hit the radar screen is the Roaring Brook Resort, because we know they may in fact be in the sale mode. So we're going to get right on that one, but it's not a significant amount. Not like the other ones. So we've been receiving short-term rental and or hotel, information from yourselves, from your constituents. Please keep that coming, because we basically, look into each and every one, and they are paying off. Granicus, quick update on Granicus. We are almost out of the quiet period, if you will, where they're basically doing all their data mining. We are in the process of user acceptance testing, so all the work that we've done, we're making sure it works for Warren County and it works, with regard to our short-term rentals. Granicus and my team will be boots on the ground mid-July with regard to starting to go after the gap. In other words, their address identification. Right now, I think we have 1,600 short-term rentals. Whatever that gap is, let's say they have 2,000 short-term rentals, we'll start working on that gap to identify and get short-term folks registered and start collecting, not only go forward, but with Granicus's technology, we're able to go backwards and also collect backwards. The expected lift from Granicus is between $260,000 and $600,000 on a $40,000 investment. So fingers crossed. I think, I hope we have as good a return as Mike Swan did. Local law number 5 rewrite. What's important about what's happening here with these enforcement issues is we just haven't had a lot of teeth in the past. We haven't really leveraged the powers that we've had. Working to rewrite local law number 5, which is the OCTAX law. We want it to be more clear, more concise, more actionable, and tougher on enforcement. Don Lehman, put a short blurb out there in our weekly newsletter about, hey, you know, short-term rentals, we're getting someone in here. We're going to be able to identify it. Please register. You know, this is what can happen if you don't register. It was kind of a soft touch. With some of these awards that we're getting and some of the enforcement actions that are being taken, and then the rewrite, which is going to make it tougher, I almost want to partner again with Don and maybe more broadly, to see if we can't communicate that things are going to get tougher, go forward. And listen, you have this opportunity, maybe give them a window to do the right thing before. So for example, right now, one of the other powers that we've never leveraged is for every person, there's $1,000 fine if you don't register. We've never acted on that. So we're actually saying, go forward, that there will be a fine up to $10,000 if you do not register. And is that annually? Is that quarterly? Basically, it's going to get a lot tougher and I'm going to collect on it. So want to give people a heads up before all of that happens, just so that, you know, gives them a chance to do the right thing. Oh yeah, the Don Lehman gentle reminder. Also, as a result of the Don Lehman gentle reminder on OCTAX, North Country Radio reached out to me. So they're, I don't know when or if Don Lehman's on that, when that's going to be. They're planning on putting it in print on their website and then podcast dates to be determined. Moving on to the short-term New York sales tax legislation efforts. You guys all know there's a $1.2 million opportunity on the table for us. That's still got a ways to go. But that will also be part of that local law update pending what happens there. I just passed out the monthly variance budget report. We have a couple of updates in there for those who were in the tourism meeting. Heather and Rob Lynch have been working and schooling me at the same time. I think our past analysis was a little overwhelming and quite, you know, the encumbrances were 18 months out. So it really looked like we were in a $2 million hole, when in fact, when you look at it more on a short-term basis, 3 months projections, you know, so you look at the available balance, you look at the minimum reserve balance, and then you look at 3 months projection of revenues, and then 3 months projection of encumbrances and operating expenses. April looked like a $200,000, you know, operating or reserve unfavorable variance. But again, that's why the $1.5 million minimum balance is there, so they can go into that when they need to for operations. And basically in that monthly analysis, we replaced the old analysis with Heather's. We're calling it the occupancy tax reserve available balance based on a 3-month projected cash flow. You can see where in the old report at 4/30/20 at the end of April, it looked like there was a $1.9 million deficit. When you look at it on a short-term, more operational level, it was really only like a $281,000 deficit. The other thing that Heather is always imploring people to understand is that from month to month, her position can change dramatically, and you'll see in the monthly budget report, just April, the end of April to the end of May, she was so excited because she's in a positive cash flow position, again, based on that 3-month projection. So the note there is just, I think it's gonna be more helpful to everyone go forward to manage it. The other thing is I finally got my hands on Mike Swan's treasury report, thanks to Amanda, that he gave in the tourism committee. I'm also including that go forward in the monthly report. I'm the collections. Heather distributes, but I collect. So I'm the enforcement arm. I'm also just regular collections of all of the OCTACs. So what I gave here is I'm giving you kind of month to month. And so I had already shared this with the tourism committee. Please know that, again, we were a little bit down in April, but we're seeing some positive 3.4% for this month, year on year, 2023 to 2024. And we're trending positively again as we're coming into the high season. The breakout in the monthly report gives you not only total cash collections, total tax collections, it also breaks it out into short-term rentals, and the short-term rentals are definitely doing better. You'll see the general, just a couple of additional items of note in the monthly analysis. Budget variance analysis is our general fund balance. We're down to about $1.2 million of discretionary spend above and beyond our minimum fund balance of $32.5 million, which represents 2 months of our operating expenses. Again, just a gentle reminder to please weigh future general fund requests with great care, as we have 6 months to go, a little less than 6 months to go, and some big unknowns.
Yes.
You just said 1.2, Christine, is it 1.2 or 2.1?
2.1. Thanks, Nate. Thank you. You're right, 2.1. The budget variances, I'm gonna be working with Tammy and John, just so that go forward, we're gonna work on those a little more timely, so thank you in advance for your help on that. A couple of outstanding issues. I'm working with Kevin. We had an inventory container issue in DPW, but he's got somebody working on that. I just want to make sure we don't have to impair the asset, which means write it down. But they've found more than 50% of the containers that were missing at the beginning of the year. They're continuing their efforts. Hopefully we'll get it to a really manageable difference, and we'll go from there. I am on point for following up with the tribal dollars. We received one payment on the tribal casino money, but we still are owed 22, 23, 24. I have a name, I just haven't gotten to it yet. Ban update, $8.4 million. That was all completed, and our final interest rate was approximately 3.6. I shared with you 3 to 3.5. It went up significantly, but we were able to, they give you kind of a rebate. So it's 3.6. So we weren't far off what I said. Next up is the bond in the fall based on our Warren County-wide culvert assessment. We're hoping to roll the ban into that broader bond. And again, if anything comes up between now and then, that is a large, capital investment, we should consider that as an option. Warren Tobacco Asset Securitization Corporation. This is another one of my responsibilities. A little bit later than I'd like to report on this, but we have our annual meeting on July 8th. About 50% of what the Asset Securitization Corporation gets from Big Tobacco and from the federal government comes as a gift to Warren County. We will be getting that after the annual meeting, which again happens on Monday. FYI, the audit passed, clean opinion, and all of the state and federal requirement reporting is completed. Partnering with the Treasurer's Department is partnering with Workforce Development on some training for our guys. Both this, I think, phenomenal training called Catamount, but also just on some 30-minute vignettes so that, the team can work on their, professional and personal development. It's really good. We had a bit of shakeup in our front office, but I'm pleased to say we have promoted from within. So Claudia Mundell will be moving to the position of principal account clerk. And then we're hiring somebody from within, and we have an open position that we're working on. So all good news there. And then my supervisor one-on-ones, except for the elusive Mr. Bean, who's not here. I have had the pleasure of meeting with each and every one of you, and I want to thank you for that. I'm gonna probably do it again, before the end of the year. Please know that I'm always available, for any questions and to help out in any way that we can, not my own myself, but Mr. Lynch and the rest of our team. Department heads, I'm a lot slower on the uptick, but other than that, that's all I've got. Any questions?
Just one quick, thank you, Chairman. For Mr. Ajos, there's a couple of expenditures, DPW expenditures that, look for local match. They're cash expenditures. Is in kind allowable under those expenditures, Kevin?
Those are related to the federal aid projects, such as the ones for the airport or the ones for the pass-through projects with DOT. They are not,
Okay,
there's no local like work match. It's a cash,
okay,
it's a
all right.
cash match on those.
Okay, figured. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just say, it seems like a job well done by the treasurer and county attorney's office to get 6 figures of taxes that are due to us, never more so when title's about to change. And never more so when it seems like they're collecting it and not paying it out.
Yeah, we had a couple of those, but thank you. It's been it's been invigorating. It's something that I'm kind of passionate about, but again, go forward. We're not gonna get to the point where someone owes that kind of money go forward. We're gonna nip it in the bud. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the bud.
Number 2 is items to be discussed by the county administrator, Mr. Taplin. The first A is the journal report of transfers that took place through May.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, you look down employment and training or workforce development, some funds that were available that were budgeted for rent and building property, 9,000 at one point, 25,000 at another point, are just being moved into other accounts from that rental surplus that they had. So just cleaning up some of their budget action. And there was a transfer of money from furnishings to buildings at Countryside Adult Home to purchase a shed. Or vice versa. Any questions? No. Okay, I'm sorry. My mistake. All right, so item 2B is you have a copy and it's a red line version of the credit card policy. Basically, most of it is just adjustments to verbiage to eliminate any ambiguity that had existed. There are two basic changes to it. Under item 3, use of the credit card, revocation of record keeping. We've eliminated a line that and changed that line to say the card holder is responsible for purchases made using their credit card or a ghost card issued to them. And the other change. And the other change was in part 4, document submission and payment of monthly credit ghost card invoice. We just changed, it used to say 5 business days. We changed it to say as directed by the county administrator's office. Can't get them all in 5 days all the time. So we gave a little bit more flexibility there. Those are the only substantive changes in the credit card policy.
I guess we'll need a motion to approve the amendments to the credit card policy. Moved by Supervisor Stroud, seconded by Supervisor Raji. Any questions or discussion?
Hey, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So item 2C is discussion on the county sales tax. You heard the comments from the treasurer that basically we're 2.1 million over our minimum surplus at 32.5 million. We started the year at 42.3 million. Last year, we used 1.9 million out of the general fund to meet the budget, and then we had pulled 5.8 million out of the budget for road projects and other projects. And we actually pulled 5.9 out. We've added 5.8 back into the budget out of the general fund. So going forward, it's going to be more and more of a challenge for us. So what you have in the paperwork is right now, we are one of basically 3 counties that still has a 7% sales tax. All the other counties in New York, except for one that did get legislation this year to go to 8%. Basically, it's Warren, Washington, and Saratoga County still at 7%. Everyone else is 8% or above. And so we looked at, this is an analysis that we did. If we were going to consider an increase to 8% the county tax rate, and I just draw your attention to the first page. There's it's an analysis that was done by the treasurer's office for the taxpayer impact on an 8% sales tax. Basically, you see the equalized county full value at 15,171 billion. The adopted county levy was 49,816,000. The county tax rate is 3.84. I think before I do that, I think I want to go through page 1. Okay, you see item 2C. The current Warren County sales tax budget. Everybody see that? That's 70 million. We collect 3% of the tax. The state takes 4%. Okay. And again, they showed you the only counties that are at below 8%. Washington County has already entered discussions to increase their sales tax to 8%. What happens with this is we would need support. It would have to be introduced into legislation, so it won't happen until January of next year if we decided to go forward. Both Senator Steck and our Assemblyman Matt Simpson and also Kerry Warner would have to introduce it into both the Assembly and the legislature. If it's approved at that point, and then they produce bills and it's sent to the governor and the governor signs, it's still the following year before it takes effect. So it wouldn't, the earliest it would take effect would be in 2026. So back to this, basically the county keeps 50% of the sales tax collections before going to the village and the city. So under the tax rules, the distribution rule, Glens Falls, the city of Glens Falls had the ability to opt out of our sales tax policy. And so the state basically says, city of Glens Falls, whatever they collect in sales tax in the city of Glens Falls, they keep 50% of that, and the county gets 50% of that. And then the rest of the county, after that collection is made, then 50% of the sales tax collections, the balance go to the towns and the village and the city. The city also gets an allocation. So if we increase our sales tax by 1% to 8%, we'll collect $24,790 or $24,798,888. And after the distribution, we would keep in the county $13,237,369. And the county portion would be decreased also by the $264,747 that we would have to pay an additional 2% to the city of Glens Falls by the state allocation when a city opts out. So the bottom line for the county would be $12,972,621.28. That would enable us to, that would probably enable us to do some adjustment to the property taxes. Right now, it's 3.284 per thousand. We could look at something closer to around 3%, 3.0 per thousand, and that would be average cost of houses in Warren County would amount to roughly 200,000 or $200 a year in taxes that they would save. So the numbers are what they are in tough budget years. We're going to go through another tough budget year this year. And again, we're being told by the state that we cannot exceed the tax cap at 2%. It's going to be tough to make our budget. We're going to have to make some tough choices this year and probably some tough choices next year. We've talked to Saratoga County. Saratoga is not currently interested in increasing their sales tax from 7% to 8%. They're not in as deep a need as we are, and probably Washington County is. So, but we're pretty confident that Washington County is going to move forward and request this in the next legislative session. So a little complex to explain, but any questions?
Supervisor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What are the revenue projections based on if you increase to 8%, based on current sales tax revenue?
I'll look back to the treasurer, deputy. Sorry. Estimates that you made for the sales tax increase.
Yeah, I use the 2023 actual, then I increase that by a percentage of 2%. Based on what we've been seeing so far this year.
Right. The reason I asked this. I wonder if you increase 8%, if that would stay the same, that revenue increase as projected, or would it decrease if you had other areas that were at a lower sales tax rate? You understand what I'm saying? And maybe I can't answer.
I think we
You
might
mean-
lose revenue.
Right,
We would lose revenue because people might go to Saratoga and
exactly, wherever it's cheaper. And therefore, the projected revenue would not be as much. So the picture changes. And not in a good way. Thank you.
I think we'd have, yeah, I think what the treasurer would have to do is look at the components that make up break down the components that make up the sales tax revenue now. See what areas they come from, because, you know, a large portion of it comes from our hospitality industry. And a large portion comes from automotive and boat sales, and they pay that tax anyway. So you can't go to Saratoga County and buy a car and pay 7%. You pay tax based on where you live.
Right. The other component that has an effect on that are interest rates. So if people making large purchases, whether it's buying a house, building a house, buying a big boat, any boat, they're all expensive, or the vehicles, with interest rates being what they are, that has a dampening effect on that as well. I'm just being practical. So I just not real optimistic about the projections. I hope that they, if this were to come to fruition, that they would hold. Not generally an optimistic guy anyway, I guess.
Yes, Supervisor Stroll.
Thank you. Just a clarification, the first total that you give us, which is updated down below, but we started at 70 million and $464,584. However, you're using the amount of $74,396,665. Now, that total figure that you're projecting, the 74.4, if you don't mind me rounding, that represents what, about 43% of the total, 43% being we collect and we get to keep 3% out of the 7%, which is, in terms of percentages, about 43%. So that figure that I'm looking at does represent the 43%, not the total that we've collected. It's the total the county gets to use to distribute in any form of which. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Supervisor.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm reminded of an old quote from President Reagan where he said, to you tax increases, go ahead and make my day. I see this as an opportunity to, as Mr. Taplin said, to possibly assist the average taxpayer in the county with housing and all different types of cost by making that for 95% of the expenditures, I think that we're talking about aren't going to really be affected. You're not going to drive to Vermont because cigarettes are less expensive there. I never drove to another destination because gas was 5 cents less. If I filled up my car, the gas I take and the time that I take go isn't worth it for me. That's just me personally. I don't, and we're talking about apples and oranges when we're talking about Saratoga County with a couple of big money-making destinations. I'm more inclined to agree with our neighbors in Washington County that fiduciary responsibilities, and I think that this recommendation or discussion falls into that for me.
Comments? Supervisor
I
Durant.
don't think it's a surprise that 3 contiguous counties are all at that same rate currently. I mean, if we were talking about Erie County and Warren County, we wouldn't be in competition with them. But I do think people would drive not very far to South Glens Falls to get gas versus here. I do that. Yeah, it happens all the time. So I think we have to be considerate about that. And the loss of revenue, does that balance out the increased sales tax?
And how do you project that?
If I may, as an example, the Stewart's on Broad Street, right across from the top of town, is probably the cheapest price for regular in Glens Falls. The Stewart's on Route 9 in South Glens Falls down, actually it's in Moreau, is anywhere from, believe it or not, 15 to 20 cents cheaper. Now, I think that's because they're in competition with this other new insulate. But point is, I wait until I need gas and I drive down there. So, and I get it because you save a fair amount. Ben's point, maybe if I was getting a couple gallons, and I have done that, I'll go to where it's cheapest close by. But generally speaking, you wait a while and then go to where it's cheaper, and that's just gas, but, other items like clothing and even groceries, what have you, might be subject to the same rationale. Thank you.
Supervisor Stroud.
Well, and I too worry about the role of diminishing returns. And, Washington County may do their own thing. I think we're more in direct competition with Saratoga County. Saratoga County, from what I'm hearing, is not inclined to go to 8%. Therefore, I'm not so quick to jump on that ship either. I'm tending to favor maintaining the 7% stand.
Thank you, Mr. I agree with Supervisor Stroud, and a very blunt, if you will, this is somewhat of a poker game. In other words, you got three counties close by, close proximity to each other, and one of them is gonna hold out, see what the other two do, or one does this, that. I mean, we raise it, Washington County raises it, Saratoga County goes, there, done. We're gonna stay right here and see what we get with respect to increased sales tax. If people do in fact migrate over here to make purchases. And in the end, if they don't see that much, they can always raise it. I just think that's the way that the game may be played, so. Good point. Thank you.
Well, from a guy that's presents a budget. Last couple of years, it's, when you're increasing spending 6 to 7 million, and then last year was another 5 to 6 million. You can do it now, or you can do it later, so that's how I see it. Yes.
But to your point, it's gonna take 2 years to do it now. So
That's what I've seen. I know the pay increase was a lot of it, but, we're just about getting that worked into the budget. But, you got many things coming at us again this year, so. And if you can only raise it 2%, that's, last year, I think it was like 1.2 million. So, that's a long ways from 5 or 6. That's why you got this big long list of things here in the treasurer's report, things that were removed from the budget. And we took it out of fund balance to put it back, or not all of it, but a big part of it.
if I traveled to Saratoga County to get a $50 tank of gas, I'd be paying an extra 50 cents. An extra 1% of a $50 tank of gas is 50 cents. Cigarettes is much scary.
A lot of other things are.
So,
So the committee, we had a consensus for the committee, the next step, we could do a board workshop to discuss it with the entire board, I think. We could do a presentation. And then we'd still have time to do that, before the end of the year, if we wanted to have a vote on it and get it before the legislature next year. Again, every year that you don't get it to the legislature is another year added on so you're looking at 26 now. If you waited, or voted it down and said, let's not do it. Our position has been, I think, just seeing the budget. It's something that we're probably going to have to do at some point. There might be a compromise that it's not a total 1%, maybe it's a percentage less than that. But we believe that, a large portion of sales tax is paid through the tourism industry in this county. And so if we could pass on some property tax savings to our residents, and have that offset occur with people who visit the county paying additional sales tax. That might be a reasonable thing to do.
How do you feel about that?
I agree with Mr. Stroud. I think at the end, hearing both sides, I'd be in favor of an increase. I think to our constituents to be able to say there's only 3 other counties out of 60-something counties, including more counties more rural than us to the north that do charge 8%. And we're trying to do it with the intent of keeping your property taxes.
I think we also need to articulate the reason behind our fund balance to the public so that they understand that that amount, we're messing with potential trouble if we go below that. I mean, that's certainly a lot more than Tom and I have in our general fund. But I mean, we do plan for our future, and we have funds to take care of that. I think that whether it's a homeowner or the county, I mean, we have a responsibility for keeping that for more than a rainy day, a storm that could happen at any time.
Mayday?
I would be in favor of a workshop, just to
Yep.
kind of
I think that makes
discuss it further.
Mr. Criscito.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, my knee-jerk reaction, nobody wants to see a tax increase, but I was on the front lines of a 4% tax increase in the tourist industry and the hotel industry. And it was, 4% was shocking, even though other counties around it. But at the end of the day, people complain, they adjust, they go back to what they want to do. They visit where they want to visit and they take it on. I think as much as I don't want to see a tax increase, I think you're right, Mr. Chairman, probably it's going to happen now or later and we need it for our budget. So I would be in favor of it.
Anyone else? So we'll move it on to a full board workshop. Mr. Chairman?
Only if you change the form.
Very good.
Right, thanks for the discussion. Thank you.
Just one. Item 3, referrals from the Criminal Justice, Public Safety and Emergency Services Committee.
Mr. Chair, can I make a request to move items 3A and B together
Sure.
as their budget amendments that one is receipts that we're receiving, the other is just the transfer from 23.
Yep.
Second.
Motion to move 3A and B, seconded by Supervisor Bruno. First one is the Public Defender's Office. To reflect receipt of $127,284 of Huel Herring contract. And this will fund a 13th Assistant Public Defender position. And the second one is B is from the Sheriff's Office. And this is to carry over $16,500 of unused 2023 Stop DWI program grant fund. Any discussion about those two items? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Number 4 is referrals from the Economic Growth and Development Committee. First item, the first two are from the Planning and Community Development Office. 4A is a request to amend the 2024 Warren County budget in the amount of $6,000 to reflect reimbursement received from the city of Glens Falls and the village of Lake George for the cost of GIS software maintenance.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Supervisor Etu, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion about that item? I'll call the question on 4A. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4B is a request to increase capital project number H418. And this is the septic system replacement fund in the amount of $400,000.
I'll move it.
Supervisor Stroud, seconded by Supervisor Etu. Any questions or discussion about 4B? I'll call the question. All in favor?
All right,
Opposed? Carried. 4C is workforce development. And this is a request to amend the 2024 county budget in the amount of $124,616 to reflect receipt of TANF, temporary assistance for needy families grants for the summer youth employment program. Moved by Supervisor Molino, seconded by Supervisor Etu. Any discussion on that? Call the question on 4C. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes.
Just wanted to say there was, well, we're on the economic growth committee. There is that addendum, our planners here.
Yeah, we could take care of that. Also from, there's an addendum to the agenda. And it's an item from the Planning and Community Development Department. And this is a request to authorize an application to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Climate Smart Communities Program for funding in an amount not to exceed $200,000, with $100,000 local share to be provided to a combination of in-kind services and county funding to support a composting pilot program. This has not been reviewed by the Economic Growth Development.
I'll move that.
Let's get it on the floor. Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Stroud. What's this about?
That's what I emailed them last night and said.
Just very briefly, I think in 2021, the county prepared more solid waste management plan. They identified the significant amount of organic material being landfilled and incinerated. The county subsequently prepared an organics management plan to identify what opportunities we have to reduce tippage fees and our greenhouse gas emissions. Kevin's department worked really closely on that, developed the organics management plan that was released last year. That plan called for, actually identified some opportunities to bring this whole composting project to scale, up to $5 million facility. The organics management plan also identified a pilot project, which we're actively designing with Scott Royal. The pilot project would help us determine the amount of demand, residential and institutional generators, figure out some of the transportation, collection methods, and then also figure out what the county's appetite is for running one of these facilities. So this is a intermittent step between study and then actually bringing to a larger scale project that would ideally save the county residents and municipalities money on waste handling. So this would be an application that we put in at the end of this month. We can hear about it in November, December, and then we can get the project underway next year if successful.
Questions? Yes.
I'll say that myself, John, and Gene are all on a working group with Scott and subject matter experts, and it's going very well. With the direction of it, it's all about saving money for the county and being more responsible for the earth.
Right. And we've spent a lot of time and effort and really, I think the county should be proud of its the time and effort that we put into this. Will be a model for, I think, a lot of contiguous counties and throughout New York State.
Where are we going to locate compost pile?
Yeah, tentatively, I'll let Kevin speak to it, but there's some county-owned land in Queensbury.
So as part of that organics management plan, we had two locations that we could potentially put this composting facility, whether it be a pilot project or not. One of them was in Queensbury and the other ones were in Warrensburg. We think based on resident wise, it would be better to have it in Queensbury at the locations we have there. As Ethan said, you know, the interim was to try to do a pilot project to kind of collect that data, see how many people would use it, see how much money it would save the towns. As far as the $100,000 for a local match, it won't be cash. Majority of that, if not all of it, will be in-kind services. It'll be our DPW staff, and or buildings and ground staff developing and building the site, preparing the site, and of course, there will be a purchase of equipment, but then we would install all that equipment that's purchased.
Any other questions? All right, and the addendum from Planning and Community Development, call the question. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Okay, thank you, guys. Number 5 is a referral from the Health Services Committee. Public Health. See, the request is to amend the 2024 Warren County budget in the amount of $12,349 to reflect receipt of funding from New York State for the Performance Incentive Award for the Health Education Division. By Supervisor Bruno, seconded by Supervisor Molino. Any discussion on number 5? Call the question then, all in favor? Opposed? Number 6 is a referral from the Human Services Committee. This is for Veteran Services. And it's a request for a transfer of funds in the amount of $1,618.76 from the contingent account to budget code 6510 office equipment. Cover the cost of purchasing 3 new office chairs. Moved by Supervisor Bruno. And seconded by Supervisor Stroud. Questions or discussion on number 6? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 3 office chairs are $1,600. Yeah, are there?
That's what they are. That's what
I know Herman Miller's are like $1,200. I questioned it.
That's why you're still sitting in these.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Chairman, I'd just like to point out too that veteran services, in my experience, is always operated on really shoestring budget. They don't ask very much, and I know that a bad chair, my back is sore for weeks, if not months. So I think it's a good investment. Yeah.
this is, as you said, this is
The state contract.
state
Yeah.
contract price. Thank you.
They're expensive.
Any other discussion on the chairs? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, number 7, let's see, this is from the Legislative and Rules Government Operations Committee, Board of Elections. And it's a request to amend the 2024 county budget, in the amount of $5,286.52 carry over 2023 grant funding for the absentee ballot program. Being told that this needs a correction.
Right, so originally, the original form in here is looking for a budget amendment, carryover funds. What they actually needed to do was just amend the budget by $314.64 to match what's in the county budget is not the same as what the Board of Election, the New York State Board of Elections showed. So they really just are amending the budget by $314.64 so that they can reach, let's see. New York State Board of Elections shows a balance of $5,601.16. The county budget shows $5,286. So they're just adjusting by $314.64.
And for those who, thank you, Chairman, for those who of you who weren't at the legislative rules committee meeting, that was articulated by our 2 commissioners, the difference of $314.
So we need a resolution just to amend the county budget by $314.64. By Supervisor Garachi. Seconded by Supervisor Stroud. Any discussion? Call the question on number 7. All in favor?
Aye.
Finance Committee action is required on the following personnel agenda items. Let's see, items 3, 4A, and B. I think number 5 we scratched. 6A through C, 7, 8, and 9. Number 3 is a request from the Information Technology Director, and his request is to appropriate $160,000 from the Computer Reserve Fund to the IT Office Equipment Reserve to cover the cost of purchasing computers and related equipment and software. Moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Easy. Discussion. Believe it's for to upgrade the county's phone system. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 4 is referrals from the Criminal Justice, Public Safety, and Emergency Services Committee. And it's request to amend the table of organization salary schedule to decrease the annual salary of the 8th Assistant Public Defender from $96,936 to $81,921, effective July 22nd.
We combined A and B,
Sure.
Chairman. Thank you.
And B is a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create the new position of 13th Assistant Public Defender with an annual salary of $89,318, also effective. Moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Garachi. Any questions or discussion on those 2 items? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? For 6, is referrals from the Health Services Committee. Public Health. We could probably move up A, B, and C on that. And it's also amending the, it's defunding Public Health Program Coordinator position from $66,055 to 0. And B is increase the annual salary of Public Health Manager position from 0 to $71,535, and also put the position in the convention program. Health education. Right, let's do it first. Moved by Supervisor Etu, seconded by Supervisor Bruno. Any questions on those 2 items? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And 6C, it's to also amend the table of organization and salary schedule and to create a new position of Early Intervention Service Coordinator. Number 1, grade 18, base annual salary of $68,806. And delete the positions of Early Intervention Service Coordinator for him at 10 hours a week, grade 18, with base annual salary of $14,377, and also delete Early Intervention Service Coordinator number 3, part-time, 30 hours per week. That's a grade 18, base annual salary of $51,611. Moved by Supervisor Etu. By Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion on 6C? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 7 is a referral from the Public Works Committee. Department of Public Works. It's a request to amend Resolution 167, 2024, which was amending the table of organization, Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2024 to create positions within the Department of Public Works. Delete the position of physical manager number 2, annual salary range of 65,807 through 73,327. Moved by Supervisor Polino. Seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion on number 7? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 8 is a request from the clerk of the board. And it's a request for a transfer of funds in the amount of $4,910.92 from the contingent account to budget code A 1010-437 legislative board consulting fees to cover the cost of unanticipated bill from Fitzgerald Morris Baker Firth PC for 2023 bond services. Moved by Supervisor Etu, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Questions or discussion none. Number 8. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Number 9 is a request of transfer of funds in the amount of, number 1 is transfer of funds in the amount of $40,460.56, also from the contingent account to budget code A 1325, county treasurer settlements to pay to, I believe that's supposed to be plaintiffs. In the matter of Cynthia Rich versus County of Warren and Christine Norton as county treasurer. See, filed March 6, 2024. By Supervisor Bruno, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Any questions or discussion? Call the question. All in favor of 9-1?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 2 is request to create a part-time position of property and casualty risk manager. And this is to develop, implement, and manage countywide risk management process and programming to reduce loss-related costs and increase county insurance rating to reduce future premiums. By Supervisor Etu, seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Any questions or discussion on 9-2? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And 9-3 is a request for a transfer of funds totaling $37,220.75 also from the contingent account to various budget codes within the county attorney's departmental budget, and this is to fund the position just created. Presley, by Supervisor Etu, seconded by Supervisor Bruno. Any discussion on that? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else from the committee? Privilege of the floor. Bruno, seconded by Mr. Stroud.